the itinerary or the way I want this class or presentation to work, it's not going to be lecture for the entire time because I am not that interesting. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you like a 10-minute presentation on my organization, the Armed Catholic, the ideas of self-defense within a Catholic mindset. Then I'll open it up to questions for probably, as long as that goes, 20, 25 minutes. But I want to save some time. If you've never picked up a firearm before, we have some demonstration pistols. We'll go through proper grip, stance, sight alignment, and so forth. So if you ever do feel like going to a firearm range, you don't have to be like, excuse me, how do you do this? And if you think that's, I work at a firearm range, a gun range in Texas, twice, 3 times a week, people will come in with their gun and be like, so how do you do this? And that's fine. I have no problem. I'm an LTC instructor. I'm USCCA certified. I enjoy doing it, especially since I don't want people to, like, shoot their foot off. So we'll do a demonstration here, so at least you'll have that foundational knowledge. Before I get into it, I am not a lawyer, never wanted to be, and never will be. So when we open it up to the question portion, please ask any question you want, with the huge caveat that it is mostly we are dealing within a theoretical application of said question. Please check the NRA website. The only good thing about the NRA is their legal section, where they have all the laws listed and what you can and cannot do. Everything else, they're kind of, so that is the idea of it. My name is Rick Barrett. I started an organization in 2021 called The Armed Catholic. It's the only Catholic pro-2A advocacy group out there. And the reason behind The Armed Catholic is because our evangelical brothers and sisters and everybody else have no problem justifying, for lack of a better term, self-defense within the context of using firearms or any kind of weaponry to defend themselves. And Catholics get very squishy when the concept of self-defense comes up, especially firearms. You want to see a group of Catholic men shut up about something, ask them about guns. They'll talk to you about theory and scripture and everything else. And when you ask them about guns, they're all of a sudden quietest group of people you'll ever hear. So my job and what I try to do, and I want to thank Michael for inviting me up here. Ironically enough, my big joke is I don't do blue states. Joke's on me. God's province says, yes, you will. I'm from Rhode Island. Providence controls the rest of it, so I feel for you guys. That's why I am now not. I'm in a not purple, but reddish, little maroon state. So the Armed Catholic is dedicated to providing first-class firearm training with a foundation of Catholic tradition. That's the motto, because the two are indeed compatible. People don't think they are, but they are. Unlike anybody else at this presentation, if you have a cell phone, I do invite you to pull it out and go to thearmedcatholic.com, because I have scripture, I have tradition, and I have the magisterium all there, and I am not smart enough to remember all of it. So if you want to look at any of it during the course of this talk and ask me about it, I will do my best. But that is my foundation, my backbone is thearmedcatholic.com, because it is giving you the ability, if somebody says you can't use guns or you can't be pro-life and pro-gun, you can literally pull it up, as I tried to demonstrate it not very well, and say to them, well, according to the Catechism of Trent in 1566, and I quote, if a man kills another in self-defense, having used every means consistent with his own safety to avoid the infliction of death, he evidently does not violate the commandment. And that is the first in a series of statements by the Catholic Church that reaffirms that you have the right to self-defense within the criteria that you would find in most self-defense shootings. The Armed Catholic website is not any kind of permit to go out and start shooting people. And please do not mention me if you feel like doing that. That is not what I am here for. My whole purpose with this is to show you that self-defense law, if you look at the criteria with it, is a mirror of Catholic social teaching. The Catholic Church, all the way back to 1566, was the first to talk about if you fulfill the criteria, do not be aggressive, only in a defensive purpose. You are not murdering, as some people, oh, thou shalt not murder. Well, if they're coming at me and everything I did, conflict, avoidance, all of the other criteria, then you are not in violation of the commandment. Will you carry the weight of that? Just like in a secular setting, yes, you will. That is unfortunately, it's an unfortunate situation to be in, but you have to understand that society, modern Catholic teaching will tell you to be tolerant. If somebody is trying to kill you, that is not tolerance. And you have the right to defend yourself with that. So when you are in a self-defense scenario, talking about Homestead, talking about concealed carry, anything related to firearms, there are 4 things that you must account for in every situation that you find yourself in. Physical, financial, legal, and the USCCA and everybody else says moral, but you and I, spiritual, because the two are intertwined. Physically, you are going to have to deal with whatever the threat is. Financially, especially in a place like New York, if you find yourself in a self-defense situation, you will face financial consequences for it. Legally, we all see what blue states, and I'll give you an example. I'm not just hating on your state. Austin, Texas. I am a licensed to carry firearms instructor. I'm a USCCA certified firearms instructor. I have a license to carry. If I was to get involved in a self-defense situation in Austin, Texas, the Attorney General or the Assistant Attorney General of that county would come for me with everything they have, because that is the legal precedent for a blue county. So you have to think about the legal ramifications of it and what it will take you through. And then finally, as we talked about earlier, the spiritual ramifications of that. And are you willing to do that? When I teach my LTC classes, I tell people, yes, you are going to have a license to carry, but you need to, and it's an individual, you need to go through your own conscience. You need to think to yourself before you put that firearm on your hip, if today is the day that I have to take this firearm out, am I ready to do so? I've had people tell me no. And you know what I say? That's an excellent point. Just because you have the ability to does not mean you should, if you are not ready to face those consequences. And we see it time after time. So, yeah, that is pretty much the 4 points that whether you are setting up your homestead defense, whether you are setting up your concealed carry defense, or way you go about things, those are the 4 considerations you have to go through before you step out the door every day. And even if you're trying to defend your church, whether it's Homestead Church, yourself, have your plan of action. Please do not think that a firearm on your hip makes you invincible. It doesn't. It requires training. Lots of training. If you haven't shot before, please buy a .22 before you buy anything else, because you're going to need a lot of range time. And don't let anybody, every good shooter has a .22, because .22 ammo is super cheap. And once you start shooting rounds off, you'll realize after your second box of 9mm, I need a .22 because I don't want to go broke. Also, it's less recoil. It's a lot easier to shoot. plans are necessary. Oh, so yes, you need to train because you will hear people say, well, I'm good, man. I got my gun on my hip and I'm going to sit in this church pew, and if anybody comes in, I'm going to get them. No, you're not. You're actually not. And the reason why is you probably go to the range twice a year and you punch 50 holes in some paper and then you leave. Doing this twice a year does not make you a competent person in the realm of firearms. Why? Because I could probably push you over and you wouldn't know anything to do because all you do is stand straight and shoot. That's why you need to take more classes and you need to treat it as any other skill. And I do not mean to be overdramatic. This skill is the difference between life and death. So please, if you do, take it as serious as it is. So that's my presentation of what we do. If you have questions on it, I am more than happy to answer. Yes?
Okay, so I've never shot firearms, so like it's almost impossible. Like how? So what would you prefer? What would be your recommendation for a first-time person like myself to have something? Would it be like I hear people like a shotgun versus a pistol, like in that kind of thing?
Oh, the typical home defense gun?
What's the best home defense gun, or what would you recommend for an EV?
So that's a fantastic question because you're going to get 400,000 different answers on it. Let me ask you some questions. How home or apartment?
Home.
How big's your acreage?
1 acre.
Okay. Densely populated suburb or more rural?
Rural.
For a first time, let me ask you this question. When you buy the firearm, are you going to go out, and this is fine, this is not an insult because a lot of people buy a gun, take it to the range twice a year, and that's all they want it for. Is it going to be a hobby or just something you want to have in your list of skills?
I don't know that I would do it sportively, but I'll practice. Yeah.
You would practice, okay.
Yeah.
So
I have a dry fire gun.
Oh, that's fantastic. Trigger control is something that most people don't pay attention to. I would actually go, in your situation, something with a 20 gauge shotgun slug rounds. The recoil is lighter on it. People will tell you a shotgun's great until you shoot it the first time and your shoulder gets a bruise and everybody drops it and says, nope. So people will say an AR-15 or something like that. That is fine if you feel that is adequate to your situation. The recoil is fine on that. The penetration is not super terrible, especially that's why I asked your acreage situation, because if, for God forbid, a bullet does not hit its target and it's going out, eventually the bullet will drop. So the more acreage you have on the outside, the less likely you're going to hit your neighbor's cat, and then you're going to have a big old problem with it. 20 gauge shotgun, AR-15. And the reason why if you're not going to make a hobby out of it and you're not going to carry it a lot, I would not recommend a pistol. The big difference, if people ask you, what's the difference between a pistol and a shotgun? Thank you for bringing up this point. A pistol and a shotgun for home defense. Pistols, if you do not practice with them, are the worst choice for home defense. What? That's crazy. Why? Great question. The reason why is because you have less points of contact. With a pistol, the only thing that is keeping this there are these two hands. A shotgun, you have 1 point of contact, 2 points of contact, 3 points of contact. You can actually bring that firearm to your shoulder with more control. Same thing with an AR-15, a pistol caliber carbine, whatever you find comfortable. The easiest answer I can give to anybody when they say, what gun should I get? Do me a favor, hold up your hand. In case you can't see, his hand is gigantic, my hand is tiny. You can put it down. That's different for pistol grips. You're going to have a different grip. You're going to have a different thing. Firearms are very customizable. If you're getting into it, you are lucky. You are in the golden age of firearms, from full size down to compacts. And if somebody says, just buy a Glock, I mean, you can, but there's different reasons behind that. My suggestion is you find a gun you like and you run with it. And don't let anybody tell you whether it's 380, 44 mag, 9mm, 22. If you can consistently hit your shots on target time after time, that's a heck of a lot better than 145 round and the other 6 are in the 7 different places in your house. So excellent question. Yes?
I wanted you to flesh out. I have a thought on what you said. Maybe you disagree, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on. You said you have to discern spiritually if you're willing to take a life. Would you say if you're going to carry a gun, you're going to engage in that way with perpetrators? You have to be willing to go all the way. You have to make that a conscious choice. And would you say if you're not willing to go all the way and you're going to have those things, better not to have a gun than have a gun and not be willing to use it? I'd be curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a great point. If you're not willing to use the tool, why carry it? You know? Why do you have that saw? I really like it. Well, we're putting concrete down. It's my favorite saw, so I never leave home without it. The question you have there is it's a good one because and I tell it to secular LTC people. You might go through this class and be like, I don't want to deal with the legal stuff. I don't want to deal with the financial. I actually don't think I could live with that. And that's fine. You have that, but at least you've done the thinking. A lot of people will just go in the store. Oh, good. Now I've got gun. Gun makes me safe. And they just don't think about, oh my gosh, I actually have to use this thing now? What do I do? It's like anything else. You have to discern through, especially something as consequential as life and death. It is something that must be taken seriously. And that's why when we have people joke around about it, things like that, yeah, that's fine. But when we're talking about matters of life and death, you have to be competent with it because not only, let's take the church example. We got your guys like, I got my 45 on my hip and I'm going to watch this door. Well, great. The guy's in the door now. Now your gun's pointing at the entire congregation. They're all hoping you're the best shot of your life. Because if not, I hope they're all in a state of grace. I hate to be so jokingly about it, but the guy in the confessions line, you better hit that guy. Or wait, let me get in there and get out before you start shooting. All kidding aside, one of the things that is preached is the best way I could put it, every bullet fired has a lawyer attached to it. When you think about it that way, you're not firing 15 rounds out of your gun. You're firing as many as necessary. Sometimes it is 15. Sometimes it's 1. We don't know. But you are responsible for every bullet that leaves that firearm that's yours. And that goes to the 4 universal gun safety rules that we have. You'll see this at every range. They may be in different order. They may be worded differently. Rule 1, even if it's something that is a complete piece of plastic, the gun is always down to my fingers off the trigger. Every firearm, fake or real, is always loaded. Even if the slide is back and the magazine's out, it's always loaded. 2, finger never goes on the trigger until you are absolutely sure you're ready to fire. Because if you start to do this and you get startled, bullets are coming out and those lawyers are waiting for it on the other side. Rule 3, we never, ever point this firearm, real or fake, at anything we do not want to destroy. Once again, if God forbid somebody bumps you or something happens, that is in the path of that destruction. And I've mentioned it a couple times already. You are responsible for everything behind your target. You are. Not the criminal, not the person. You are responsible. It's a lot of pressure to exercise your God-given right to keep and bear arms. And it should be, because lives are at stake. Excellent question, Father. Thank you. Other questions? Yes?
I believe I live in New Jersey. I think in New Jersey, and I don't know about other states, but you have to keep, the gun can never be loaded. It's got to be in the cabinet ammo has to be somewhere else. So how is that going to help you when there's a sudden intrusion? It's not, right?
No, well, that's unfortunately those are the hurdles that you have to face in your state, which is it's just not fair.
Is that true in other states? Or?
Every gun in my house is loaded. If every gun in my house is loaded, and every gun I live by the 30-foot rule. I have a rosary and a gun 30 feet from me at all times. So, I mean, I live in Texas where literally, you know, there's a joke. It's never happened to me. Actually, it's happened once. I don't want to lie. It's a joke. If you pull out your concealed carry license and your driver's license to an officer, they'll let you off. As a man who has gotten pulled over numerous times in my career in Texas, it's only happened once. But license to carry and things like that, you would have to find a firearms instructor in the state of New Jersey, go back and forth with them and say, hey, what are some strategies I can go through to...
You mentioned it, just the Supreme Court now, New Jersey is being forced to allow concealed carry.
The Bruin decision.
Kicking and screaming because of the Supreme Court. So that maybe, I don't know how they're going to square the rules that you can never have your gun loaded in the house for that.
I mean, New York State is the reason why that's even happening. It's the Bruin decision. New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin, with Justice Thomas writing the opinion. And that was 2 years ago. And then the problem is, I think New Jersey either does or does not have, which is really not a great way to put it. I don't know if New Jersey has a right to keep and bear arms in its state constitution. I know this state does not. This is one of 6 states that does not have that. California and Delaware and a couple other weird states that don't have it either. Yes. No.
Last question. I don't mean to hog.
That's
Talk to police officers and other people in law enforcement. A trend in North Carolina, and I don't know if this is nationwide, is that if criminals find out you have guns, they like to steal them for the black market type stuff and get them around. Is that true, or could you explain that? Or
I can.
what's that potential danger?
That's a fantastic question. From post-COVID on, the number of thefts from firearms from guns has risen exponentially. Please do me a favor and don't keep honking, I'm reloading my gun as a bumper sticker on the back of your car. Think it's funny? People do it. Or Moulin Lab, or come and take it, or I have 5 guns in this car, or NRA for life. Because when you go to the airport, and I don't keep guns in my car, by the way, but let's say I did, my car has been unwatched for 5 days. Denver is the #1 airport where guns are stolen out of cars. Because your rural folk who keep the guns in the cars at all times, they get to the airport and they go, oh yeah, I can't take this with me. I'll just leave it in the gun compartment. Meanwhile, they got a Trump 2024 sticker on the whole back of the window. So the gun people are like, there's a free gun right there. So guns, let me tell you, I am not a truck gun guy. There are people like, I got a truck gun, purse gun, foot gun. I have one and I carry it on me. If you want to have a truck gun, you got to make sure it comes out of your car every time. You are responsible for every gun you have. So yes, they are correct. Guns are getting stolen out of cars because people are being stupid, for lack of a better term. Yes?
What do you think about stun guns, tasers, those type of things?
The less than lethal options are there. Stun guns are tricky because if it's the projectile, the actual taser that shoots out, you miss, that's it. You gotta be like, hold on, sir, let me reel it back in and recharge it. The actual little cat ones, I don't like that because my wife won't carry one of those. My wife is 5'2", and if she has to use that, that means that person's within physical range of her. So I'm fine with that. Pepper spray and mace, you actually have to train with those because people are like, I have pepper spray until they realize they're shooting and the wind's coming back at them. It happens, and it's not a fun experience for your first time to realize that pepper spray is coming back at you. So, all kidding aside, if you're in a state like New Jersey, New York, or California, that I don't even know what you guys can or can't in these states.
You can't even buy a BB gun.
No. I know some self-defense people that are all about it because it is another way from them preventing to actually use their firearm. When it comes to your own defense, all we can do is educate you on the options. I personally am not a fan of them, but who cares what I think if you've assessed it and you say, well, for me, I think it's a good choice. That's fine. You can, if you make that choice, I'm not going to tell people, oh, I shoot a 380. Can you hit the target? Yes. Good. Then you shoot that gun like you never shot before. So yeah, that's kind of my whole thing on less than lethals. They're good alternatives, but they also have their own set of drawbacks. Everything does, right? So it kind of just, you have to figure out, is that risk worth it? Like with everything else. I'll get you next.
One of the things when you're talking like new gun owners, anything like that, and I know guys that had guns for a long time, like, oh, I got this timber, you know, it's real small, whatever. Does it fit your hand? And I like Smith revolvers do not work for me.
Yep.
They point up.
Yep.
So if I have to stop and aim, and so I practice with, you know, guns that fit, and it's something I've gotten rid of.
Yep.
And before I do anything, before I buy any guns, anything like that, I try to see if it fits my hand when I pick it up. Is it pointing where I want it to point? Pointing up, down, sideways, down, you know. If they don't fit your hand in a stressful situation, you know. So I don't know. It's not really a question, but
it's a great point.
Got questions about it, you might want to hit on that.
That's why I asked him to show. I had a guy one time. He was because I work near Fort Hood. It's not Fort Cavazos. It's Fort Hood in Texas. And he came in. He's like, "Sir, what kind of gun should I shoot?" I said, "Put your hand up." This dude's, it was like a catcher's mitt compared to mine. I said, "Okay, you're probably more of a full size guy instead of," because they can't do the compacts because their hand envelops it. So we're lucky that we have gun ranges where you can rent different sizes of guns to shoot them to see what you do or do not like. Another thing that you have to bring up is recoil. Smaller guns, people come in, oh, it's so cute, it's like James Bond, until you shoot it and you realize the thing's going to go up to the ceiling because that explosion that takes place, and that's what happens every time you pull the trigger, an explosion is taking place. That's why it bangs. It doesn't have a lot of places to go with that little gun. So it's going to recoil into your arm. And I've seen people shoot little Ruger LCPs and they're like, nope, never again. And a gun that you don't shoot, that you keep in the safe, is worthless. If you buy a gun and you don't shoot it, I don't know what you're doing. Oh, lastly, that's a good point. At least in Texas, it's a federal thing. When you buy a gun, you can't return it. I don't like this gun. I don't really care. It's yours now. The ATF won't let me take it back. The process for getting a gun is you get the gun from a distributor. We have to put it in what we call an ATF bound book, meaning we have taken possession of the firearm with the serial number. When you do a 4473, which is the name check, what gender are you, which is a real question. You can be non-binary on a federal background check now. We call the FBI. The FBI does a quick criminal background history check, and you either pass or fail. Once you take possession of said firearm, that is yours. I don't like it. I don't care. Legally, we can't take it back. You can sell it, in Texas, you can sell it secondhand or maybe sell it to a pawn shop. But it's like a college textbook. Y'all remember paying $200 for a college textbook and getting $15 back for it? That's pretty much what happens with firearms. You spend $500 on a gun, you may get $350 back. So it is another huge decision as well when you purchase it, because you are taking actual ownership and possession of it. So go ahead.
I just was wondering, could you describe what it should fit, or how a gun should fit in the hand versus what size hand would be too big for that?
So when we're holding our firearm, we want to make sure that we can get all of our fingers on the actual grip. That's another problem with people with bigger hands. When they buy those smaller firearms, their pinky and everything's on the bottom. That's not a good grip. So you want to make sure your fingers can get around that grip. You want to make sure this beaver tail, they call it, you can get your hand right underneath it. And the reason why is I say a firearm is like water when you shoot it. If there's a space, it's going to it. That recoil is going to find that space, and you're going to have to reassess the whole time. So you make sure that you can actually get all your fingers around on that. And then when you get that second grip, that you can get a good, strong, you can get these 3 fingers on top of the other and be able to actually get on the slide. So it's really making sure the grip that you're shooting with can get around the actual frame of the gun. The second one can actually get good placement, and that you don't have to, you're not fighting it because it's huge. There are ways to get around it if you're shooting a smaller gun or a bigger gun, but for your first one, you just need, it's outside of that, you will feel the grip actually when you get around. Like I can get all my fingers around it, I can push it forward, and when it shoots, my hands don't go apart because I'm barely hanging on. So I don't know if that helps or not. Okay. Yeah, that's another reason why if you can try out as many firearms as you can, that is a helpful thing for you.
What's your thoughts on gun safe versus I've seen online like furniture where you like
Yep.
it's hidden in the thing and you got to put a magnet or something like that on it between those two?
When seconds count, I don't like Mickey Mouse stuff. Because remember, you're asleep. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. You are in REM sleep and everything, the land of candy canes and rainbows. Everything's great. Bam! You ever wake up with your alarm and you don't know where you are? Every day. Now imagine that, and you've got about 2 minutes to figure out what just happened and what do I do? Now your home defense, your homestead, I'm actually going to go into homestead, so thank you. So your homestead, your home defense is different per person. My wife and I, we don't have kids. So for our homestead defense is, my door's locked. If you come through, I can tell the police that front door, my door to my bedroom was locked. They can have anything in the house because I have insurance. But as soon as they try to break through that door to my bedroom, I'm giving myself permission to defend myself and my wife. If you have kids, you may have to exit your bedroom and confront whatever is out there to protect the lives of your kids. When I say may, I mean you do. So there's different scenarios for that. So the point of all that is, I've got to get access to my firearm as quick as possible. The magnet thing, you know, if you lose the magnet or it's not the day where it gets like wet or something and it's not moving, or the joints, that's a problem. Electric safes versus mechanical safes. Electric safes are great. They're quicker. Battery dies, happens to me all the time. I don't know if I want to put my life in the hands of Duracell. Or I buy dollar store batteries, so that's probably my fault. But mechanical ones, just make sure you can find one that does the code quickly enough so you can get it. These things you need to think about because you're going to be half asleep in that scenario. Your adrenaline will pump a little bit to kind of even the playing field up. You're still groggy, and you are now potentially facing somebody who has scoped out your house, planned this for as many days as they need to, and are coming equipped with 1, 2, 3, as many people that they feel to get the job done. The only thing you have as an advantage is that it is dark and you know where all the places where you stub your toes. That's a joke, but folks, the lights off in your house, that's your home, that's your advantage. You know your house. They don't. So you have to take all those things into consideration. It's really tough because with any safe, you're relying on some kind of mechanical device. For me, the less amount of things that I have to worry about, like batteries or anything like that, the better I feel. But once again, if I've seen some really neat safes that they stick on the side and it drops out and it does all this cool stuff, and if that's what you want to do, just practice with it enough so that way you don't want to try and test the code for the first time in the situation. Because a lot of people, it sounds smart, right? Oh, I bought the safe. Have you tried the code? Yeah, once. Does it work? It did the one time. So anything, whether it's firearms, any of the things that you are using to defend yourself, please train with it. Practice with it. So that way, when the time comes, you're not learning for the first time. Questions? Yes?
What do you think about the Enigma, holster Enigma, and also what's your everyday carry?
Ooh. The Enigma holster is a genius revolution. Now we're getting into holsters. This type of holster can be worn. It's not worn on your belt. It's worn on your person. So you can wear a bunch of different outfits and things like that. It's really nice. Very expensive. I don't have it. So as far as, but the people that I know that I work with, they sing its praises and they think it's an amazing device. So that's what I can give you there. Depending on the season, since it's getting warmer out, I carry a Ruger LCP Max, which is a 380 with 10 rounds because, it's 1,000 degrees in Texas and I'm not wearing a sweatshirt. So that's that. In the wintertime, I actually carry a Palmetto State Armory Micro Dagger, which is their Glock 43 knockoff. So that's what I use as well. So those are my types of firearms. I like the way they fit. I've gone through tons of them. I've had Glocks, I've had Berettas, I've had all that kind of stuff. And I use Rugers a bunch of times. Obviously, it's the LCP. But like I said before, you're in a golden age of firearms. Any firearm, whether it's a Canic, which is the trigger is fantastic, and for like $300 they give you 500 things, which is amazing. Or you want to get a Staccato, which is a very nice 1911 style firearm that is like $7,000. If you have $7,000, you can give it to me instead of buying a Staccato. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the gun's $200 or $7,000. If you don't know how to run it, you're useless. So whatever gun you buy, you have to commit to training with it.
How do you feel about manual safeties on a handgun?
I think as long, you're going to think it's a cop-out answer, training. I have no opinion negatively or positively on stuff like safeties. I have guns with safeties on them. And so I know when they're up or when they're down. It's just when you're pulling, you have to make sure, okay, I have to make sure that safety's down before I present. So you can overcome any challenge if you train with it. Nothing is outside the realms.
How do you feel about carrying one in the chamber?
Necessity. If you want to make sure that you go to heaven before you're supposed to, don't carry one in the chamber. You are not going to be fast enough, no matter what you think, if you don't. These little things, these spirit fingers, are going to turn into meat sticks as soon as your adrenaline kicks. This is what you're going to do. This tactile stuff doesn't exist. As soon as you're like, that guy's trying to kill me, your body will stiffen up as the surge of adrenaline is running through you. You will not be able to do the manual dexterity that you can do on an everyday basis. So just like with the safeties and stuff, seconds count, make it as simple as possible, and train with one in the chamber. I know it's a little unnerving at first, but it's just, I would do dry fire practice, taking the firearm out of the holster and making sure I'm doing it every time before, going out with one in the chamber.
I bought a Ruger LCP Max earlier this year, and when I was at the gun store, the attendant there kind of looked at me sideways whenever he was giving me different options. I was just trying to see what I wanted. I told him I didn't want a manual safety, and I carry one in the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
He just kind of like gave me a sideways look. Like it's one extra step for me personally.
Yep.
I feel like in a high tension situation, I will fumble, and then the one in the chamber is just pretty much a given plus it's a free round.
That's right.
It's 10 plus 1 at that.
That's very true. And I will get one, before I forget, as I'm stumbling through it. Don't listen to a gun store employee. They're making $15 an hour. They don't care what you buy. And you know what the easiest thing? And do not say this phrase when you walk into a gun store. What gun should I buy? It's like walking onto a car lot and say, what car should I drive? Well, that $78,000 F-150 looks real good right now, doesn't it? Same thing with a gun, because they don't know your situation, your training, your talent, any of that stuff. So, well, you shouldn't buy the Ruger LCP. You want to sell a gun to me or not? You want the sale or not? So that's a great point. Unless they're certified by the NRA, the USCCA as a firearm instructor, and they actually, because if you haven't gone to a gun store before, you're going to find it's probably one of the least accepting environments you've ever been in. It's actually what got me into guns, because when I was starting to get into it, everybody I asked questions about, they looked at me as if, how dare you ask me the difference between 9mm and 40 Smith & Wesson. Do you read? There's tons of stuff online, YouTube. You got the Warrior Poe. You got all those guys who will break down caliber and all that stuff. Most of the people at your gun stores are not, depending on the day. If they're having a bad day, they're going to be like, whatever, dude, I don't care. You're going to buy the gun or not. So.
What's the right time to teach a child how to use a firearm?
I would say as soon as they can safely demonstrate the 4 universal safety rules. I think it's also very important as an instructor, when we do the LCT course, we talk about things. We have a section on child safety. If you have children in your house and you have firearms, the last thing you do is to make it a game where you hide it. The next time you go to the range, put out your mat in front of them, show them how you break it down. Always repeat the 4 universal gun safety rules. Tell your children, this is mom and dad's gun. You are not allowed to touch it. If you find it out, come tell me or come tell your mom. We'll put it away. Don't ever touch it under any circumstances. But show them. This is how you stand. And when they get old enough to you feeling, okay, they're responsible, then you can take them out. Some people start doing it as young as 3, some 12. It really is, just like with anything with kids, there's no set standard for when they should be doing things.
You probably want to like transition with a BB gun or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, absolutely. BB gun, paintball gun, because you can do the 4 universal gun safety rules with all of those. And if you train that with those, then it just transitions easily over. So yeah, if you feel BB guns are the way to go, then that's perfect. It's your child, and if that's how you feel you do it, I would rather you at least do that than just be like, don't ask me about the gun. I don't want to talk about it. Because it's like saying, don't find grandpa's whiskey. Because now they're like, I'm going to go find that. And you don't want them finding your firearm. I had a guy once, really nice guy. He was like, well, I have my gun on the top shelf in my bedroom. I was like, we need to talk. Because you need to spend whatever you can to get that gun locked up. I know you think you're doing well, but that one time your kid's going to find it and you're going to hate yourself. So don't hide it, put it in a safe, and make sure your kids understand the universal safety rules around it at all times. Just like anything else, the more you make your children involved in whatever it is, the less likely they're going to try and find out by themselves.
Take the curiosity out of it.
100%.
I
Yep.
let my 4-year-old dry fire my SIG BP-65.
There you go. So, I mean, and that's, you feel comfortable in that scenario. I'm not going to tell a parent how to work with their child. I'll tell you the 4 universal gun safety rules, and then you can run off with that however you'd like. 1 and then 2. Go ahead.
In addition to going to the range, how do you feel about that sort of practice at home? I think it's called like eye target, like that.
The lasers?
With the lasery thing, see if you're accurate.
Yeah.
In addition to that?
I think those things are fantastic. The great thing about those are trigger control, because you'll find a lot of people don't know how to go like actually pull the trigger correctly. They'll just slap it. With the targeting system, with the laser system, it can show you if you're pulling up or down or which way you're going. It can also teach you breath control. I can't do it with these, but every time you pull a firearm when you go into the range, trying to obey the safety rule, I got to point it up. Take a deep breath, go to the wall, exhale and pull. And then if you do that over and over and over again with your dry fire system or just dry firing by yourself with your gun, that will do a world of difference when it comes to actually shoot. Dry fire training, laser training, great options. Only thing I can say about that, make double sure that any live ammo is as far away from you as possible, because the last thing you want to do is have somebody say, smells like lead in here. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, that's because the gun, we've had it happen where all of a sudden everybody's ears are ringing and it smells like lead. So just make sure the ammo is as far away when you're dry firing. But outside of that, I think they're really great options.
You mentioned bedroom a couple times. One said when somebody comes through the bedroom door, and I did a little research on that, and there's it's like if you go looking for a perpetrator in your house, you become the target.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and maybe that's
My
you know, like call 911 and say, hey, I want you out of my house, so there's a record of something like that
of course.
going on. I want you out of my house. I have a gun, and I don't want you here. This way, if you end up having to shoot somebody or something like that, you gave them a chance to leave, and they did not. And
What happens if your kids are on the other side of the house?
What's that?
Your kids are on the other side of the house.
That's you. But like you said, you live alone. I live alone. So,
Mhm.
you know,
No, that's why it's different for every single one. For parents are like, I'm going out that door,
they are.
and I'm gonna tackle whatever
Mom
happens.
away from protecting
Yep.
kids.
But that's my thing. Of course, my wife is. I would tell her, you need to call 911 while my eyes are on the door. Yep, because you want that record as well. But we both know, you've done the studies, 15 minutes minimum for them to get there. If you live in a rural area, you can probably double that, triple that. So the defense idea, whether it's Homestead, home, or anything like that, is kind of what we said before. What are your factors for actually pulling that firearm out? What is your line? Is what I tell people when I do the LTC course. What's the line that is crossed where you're going, okay, the decision's been made. And you may think it's one thing, but it may not be when you have to actually analyze it. You actually have to go through these scenarios. And for some people, that's kind of icky. Like, I don't want to think about killing somebody. Well, you bought a gun, and that's really kind of the only purpose for it. So, for lack of a better term, unless it's like a hunting rifle or something.
Wouldn't it also depend on your state laws? Because I come from North Carolina, where we have the castle.
You have castle doctrine there.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's like a no retreat kind of thing. If somebody breaks
Yeah.
into my front door, I have full authority.
Yep.
To
And here,
stop 'em.
it is a duty to retreat state, just like Rhode Island. And that is, unfortunately, the worst situation you guys are in. Because legally, there's no place you can retreat to that a prosecution can say, couldn't you go a little bit further? I'm in my underwear in the street. What do you want me to do? Couldn't go a little bit farther? You're already there. And it sounds stupid until you're sitting in an air-conditioned courtroom with a prosecutor with a $1,000 suit because you killed like Fluffy's cat or something, saying, well, why couldn't you do this? Or why couldn't... Remember, the court cases can take years for an incident that takes place in 15 seconds. And your judgment in that 15 seconds is going to be scrutinized. Your history of social media is going to be scrutinized. There was an incident in Austin during COVID. There was the Uber driver, the Air Force guy, where somebody came at him with an AK, and he shot. And everybody was like, oh, it's a clear case of self-defense. Until they went through his Facebook history, and his messenger said, oh, if I run into a crowd of these commies, I'm going to shoot them. The prosecution was like, Exhibit A. He went out looking for it. Everything's going to be scrubbed, and that's part of that legal framework. You know, posting memes like, God, guns, and Trump 2024. They're going to be like, he is a MAGA extremist, crazy gun person. Go to jail for 100 years. So, all these things will be scrutinized. Not to scare you, just to understand that's, and I'll talk about that.
In a must-retreat state, and these laws are written in ways to confuse people, it seems.
Yes.
You sound like you're at least reasonably familiar with Rhode Island. What does that say about your kids are on the other side of the house? And you're in your room here, they're over there, and someone's coming through the door there.
So, as a shameless plug, in November of this year, November 20th, I'm actually having a book come out called The Armed Catholic. Catholics pretty much to take everything on the website, and I compile it into a book. And I use an example from the state of Maryland from a couple years ago. There was a man who was on a construction site with a fellow guy. The man was my size. The main person of the story was my size. Smaller guy, wife, 2 kids. He invited a guy who worked on construction with him. He was an MMA fighter, former football player, just like the epitome of the guy. Just big, strong guy. Big, strong guy gets drunk, threatens to kill little guy. Little guy goes to his room, gets his firearm, stands in front of the door where his kids are, eventually has to put two into big guy. Big guy dies. The lawyer was able to say, I know in Maryland is a duty to retreat state. It's a blue state. He said, listen, this is a justified case of self-defense. And in that case, They found him not guilty. So I guess the point is you probably have to have a good lawyer. But I don't mean to chuckle with that, but that's why I don't know if Maryland or Rhode Island has these things. First of all, even though I am a USCCA certified firearms instructor, don't buy their insurance. Don't buy a concealed carry insurance, because insurance companies have the ability to deny you, even when you pay them. Just like anything else, insurance companies can deny you for your car or whatever. You can be a member of an association like I am called Right to Bear. And what that is I pay into an association that hires attorneys. So if I'm in a situation, I call them, my attorney gets on the phone and pretty much represents me from the moment the accident happens. So if you're able to find some kind of, I know Attorneys on Retainer is an example of somebody who does all 50 states. Maybe contact them and see if you can get representation from them. That's the best defense you can have. If you're going to have a firearm, in like North Carolina, you guys do Law Shield, all those, I would look into Right to Bear. Don't do Law Shield, don't do USCCA because they're insurance. I think CCW Safe, Right to Bear, those are associations. Associations you're better off with. But Attorneys on Retainer is another one that promises 50 state legal coverage. So if you're going to buy a firearm and you're going to put yourself in that situation, we talked about legal, that's the way to cover yourself legally. I mean, I pay $10 a month and they say they'll represent me from the moment I call them at the accident all the way through to the judgment being read. Right to Bear. That Right to Bear is an offshoot of Palmetto State. So, yes.
So obviously we can go to the range to try to make ourselves better when it comes to becoming professional with our firearms. What are some other ways and avenues that we can take to get some instant feedback from someone else who might be a lot more professional, qualified as an instructor, or like, there's like competitions and things like that that can simulate stress?
Competition shooting is a good one. There's pros and cons to that, because competition shooting doesn't teach you as well to shoot behind cover, but it does teach you to find a target and shoot. USCCA does have an extensive database. We have active shooter trainings. We have concealed carry, defensive gun classes where you actually have live fire and they kind of simulate stress. You can just type in defensive firearms course in New York, and maybe they'll have some here or wherever in North Carolina, and just train in those situations. People are up in the air on this. Airsoft, if you want to try and do that. The only problem is a lot of the airsoft guys are like Captain America, and they're just kind of guns blazing throughout the whole thing, and they can't really take it as seriously as they do. So that's a great question, how to simulate stress, competition shooting, finding defensive gun courses, things like that. Just a little bit of research, but there are plenty of them. There's in Arizona, there's the mecca, for lack of a better term, of gun training, place called Gunsight. And Gunsight does some crazy stuff. Like they'll put you in a house and try to put you through some stuff. So costs a lot, but you're training, how much you want to train, that's up to you. So just finding courses. Yes.
How did you get into firearms as a career, and how long did you do it?
So I've been a firearms instructor since 2021. I've been carrying a firearm since 2012, and I got into firearms in about 2008 because being from Rhode Island, my mom and my family was very anti-gun, like didn't want anything to do with it. Then I met up with a couple guys playing paintball, ironically. They were like, "Oh, you ever shot a gun before?" I was like, "No, I've never done it." And so they took me to the range and put a 44 mag in my hand, and I shot that, and I was like, "Yeah, I think this is for me." Kind of just fell in love with it. God, Mom, I'm sorry, but that's kind of how I got into it. So, yeah.
What's your main source of income, or is it veterans entertainment?
Right now, full time, I am a firearms instructor at the gun range in Killeen. I have the book coming out in November. Working on a couple other things as well. I'm also a member of this organization called the Martyrs Walk out of North Carolina. It is a spiritual and physical boot camp testing men. We're doing a walk in August, themartyrswalk.com, where we put you through 3 days of spiritual and physical test.
You guys did one in March, didn't you?
We did. Well, we tried to we didn't get enough people.
Okay.
But
I have a buddy from church who went through it, said it was phenomenal.
Who's your buddies?
Kept up with
Who's your buddy?
Logan.
Logan Reed.
There you go.
Yes, brother. What is he? Brother 14.
He's 16.
Tom's brother. Tom's number 18.
Nice. I
So
tried to get them to come this week.
yeah, he's tell him to stop wearing the silkies. Because we saw pictures of that today, and that is now in my brain, and that is not great. So tell him to cut off on that. Oh wow, we already did. So that's another group that I am a part of right now. So, huh? Oh yes, thank you. If you are so inclined, I sit there while Steve Cunningham talks on the News from the Pew show. I love Steve from Census Fidelum, great guy. He literally, because I used to host a daily show on the Crusade channel with Mike Church called the Barrett Brief, and it was 5 days a week, 3 hours a day, talking politics. Steve sent me a message on Facebook because it's Steve, and he's like, "Hey, I'm starting a show and I want you to host it." And I went, A, how do you know who I am? And B, are you absolutely sure? And he's like, yeah. And so it's been an honor. It really is an honor to be with him and John and Fawaz, because Jonathan Arrington is, without a doubt, and I don't use this phrase lightly, he is the smartest man in any room he walks in. And he's the most unassuming man you'll ever talk to. He's like, "Oh yeah, I have an hour before I go teach the monks Gregorian chant, so if you want to do this," I'm like, "What? Like, what are you talking about?" Guy learned Latin. His kids watch TV in Italian because he lived in Rome for 7 years, and so he doesn't want them to lose their ability to speak Italian. They don't watch American TV; they watch Italian TV, so they can keep so. Anyway, I didn't talk about that.
How do you feel about dogs?
Love them. Oh, you mean as like guard dogs? Oh yeah.
As just an alarm system.
A defense setup needs to be set up as layers. Too many people think that the only time they should do it is when the door busts through. Guard dogs, dogs in general, even the tiny ones are great because they bark at everything, right? They think they're 40 pounds and they're this big. I know, I have one. Lights, motion sensor lights, cameras, dogs, window alarms, anything you can do to give yourself a split-second advantage. I don't know if you've ever seen the Bulldog door braces. You put them underneath your door and it kind of braces the door that way. You can find them at like Ace. When you're in a self-defense scenario at your house, time is your biggest enemy. It's not the people on the other side. It's when you hear the threat, the clock starts and they already have an advantage against you. You're playing catch-up. So lights, dogs, a door brace, alarms, anything that can take some of that time back for you is an advantage. Think about just you're trying to get some of that time that they've taken by having this set up and going as an attack. You're trying to get some of that back.
Yeah. You would say you're crazy if you don't lock your doors.
Depends on where you live. I lock mine. I got bulldogs under each one of them.
But I mean, if they're going to get in, they're going to get in.
But that's the point. Yes, we've assumed they're going to get in. Is it going to be harder for them to get in? Yes. I'm trying to make it as difficult as possible for them to get in my house. If they got to kick the door 3 times, that's 2 more times, then that's more time I get. I've already assumed if they're going to break into my house, I've lost that advantage of having a homestead that's secure, for lack of a better term.
What about the sense that you feel like you're giving in if you're locking your house up with something like that? You can't walk out of your house.
We live in a fallen world. A fallen world is subject to the whims of evil people. St. Augustine has a great quote, and I forgot it, so I'm going to look it up. And it's really the quote that I love the most out of all of these, and I think it's going to answer your question, and I'm just stalling for time while I find it. Right? I'll start tap dance before I find this thing. Yeah, I should know my website better, but I don't. Nope, it's not there either. Which one did I put in there? Oh, Catholics and Guns, probably. Nope. You got me on that one. Truth. There it is. St. Augustine of Hippo, City of God, 426 AD. Though defensive violence will always be a sad necessity in the eyes of men of principle, It would be still more unfortunate if wrongdoers should dominate just men. We live in a fallen society. That stinks. I wish we lived in Mayberry. I wish we could all have our homes unlocked, but there are evil people out there. So you have to take all of that into consideration. I don't find it a problem that I have to lock the door. It is a product of what the time we live in. Yes.
Do you recommend handguns versus shotguns for home defense situations?
Depends on your training level. If you don't want to shoot it a lot, you just want something to have, AR-15, 20 gauge shotgun, something like that you can just rip and go. If you run your pistol 3 or 4 times a quarter, you're proficient with it, use your pistol. I always try to tell people that it's not a gun, it's how much training you have with the gun that is going to determine what's best for you. People want to have some kind of standard, and they're like, oh, look at this gel test, look at this penetration test. Well, if you're not good with it, it doesn't matter about any of that. If you're good with that SIG that you have, then I would recommend that. Me, I use whatever gun I'm carrying at the time, either the dagger or the whatever is closest to me, because I run the most. So.
Somebody had recommended to me recently getting a shotgun for home defense situations because I have a smaller house. It's about 1,100 square feet, 4 kids and me in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So in the event of having to fire my weapon, it would be splatter versus one bullet potentially going through a wall that could cause issues.
Yeah, the BB argument with double-aught buck. If you're close to the wall, it's going to go through, and then you have 4 essentially 45s flying through the air. Any bullet's going to penetrate. It just depends on the level of penetration you're looking at. So you can, and it's a tough question because we have to acknowledge that yes, indeed, if we miss, it's going to penetrate, no matter how good you are. That's why it's like no 44 mags or anything like that. Yeah, you could. I mean, if you look at your situation and you say, I think it's well, have you ever fired one before?
Shotgun?
Yeah.
I've fired one, but I only currently have handguns.
Okay. Unless you're absolutely 100% certain that it's going to make your situation better, that you would be better with it, I would stick. Because when you think about it, you're buying a shotgun, and this is not a negative. These are things you have to consider. Every new gun you buy, just mark off 1,000 rounds that you have to buy to get good with it. And then you have to designate the time to do it. That's just a round number I'm using. I know some people are. What are you thinking?
I like judges. Okay, I got one upstairs, one downstairs.
Yep.
First round's number 4s. Right? Try to find 410 ammo anymore. I don't shoot it.
Well, yeah, it's another.
Rifle barrel, and from me to you, you're probably a spread like this, point it at the middle of the door, and it's dark. You're gonna hit something, and somebody's gonna know they've been shot. Probably won't kill them. Stuff following behind it is nasty. That's
Every lawyer in the world would literally cringe at what you said. Well, it won't kill him. Because guess what? If you don't kill the intruder, he's going to sue you for everything you have. I know people are like, are you kidding? Rick Barrett's not trying to be funny. And the one time I'm not trying to be funny. Oh, you didn't kill him? Guess what? Now he owns your house. Once again, the idea of shooting somebody is not, that's why I said, and I'm not in a self-defense situation, I'm not shooting unless that door is busted. Because I know that I'm taking a life. And every lawyer, I'll say this, one of the guys I train, he's a fellow LTC instructor, and he was doing a class of lawyers. And one guy was like, why don't you shoot him in the leg? And every other lawyer was like, what are you talking about, shoot him in the leg? You already shot him. He's going to sue you now. And he has just cause because you shot him. Well, you were breaking into my house. And you know what a prosecutor will say? Why didn't you just call the police and wait it out? Well, then why did you wait? Why did you shoot him? You didn't have. But that's the problem. You know why you did it. They have something called the reasonable person test. Would a reasonable person in your situation done the same thing? What's the problem with that? Nobody's reasonable. And nobody's in your shoes when that guy is breaking down your door and your life is on the line. But they will use the reasonable person test as a way to say, well, the 12 people on this jury, and most of them probably hate guns, would not have shot this person. So the legal hoops that you would have to jump through are awful. So either way, either one of our scenarios, depending on who the attorney is and stuff, we're both in trouble. But if we're going to shoot, we don't shoot to wound, which is unfortunate, but it is the game that is. Last question. Yes? Oh, the top flight, the tight groups? That's what SWAT uses. They use them for a reason. You know, it keeps the pattern tight instead of spreading out. Because you want a little bit of a spread, but you don't want a massive spread. Because the farther it goes, the higher the spread is. With the top, with the control flight, it keeps it at a tighter group, longer distance. All right, so we've got about 10 minutes left. This is going to be the part where, if you want, we can go through picking up a firearm, grip, and stance. If you'd like to do that, you can come forward. If this does not interest you, then the presentation is done, and I thank you for your time. All right, so if you want, come on up. Which one? I believe it is. Yeah, he's going to come and get my mic. Yep. Absolutely. All right, come on up. Come on up. Now we always obey the four. If you want, come on.
Wait, I noticed you didn't mention the fourth rule. What was it?
I did. It's always be aware of what's behind your target. Yeah. Yep. So we know the 4 universal gun safety rules exist. We are okay with it today because we know that these are really, they have no bullet, no chamber, no nothing. So when you are pointing them this way, you are not violating any of the safety rules. So if we are ever picking up a firearm, the first time you ever do, you're going to make the finger gun, like so. And you're going to put it along, your index finger will go along the slide. You can, go ahead. Go ahead and put it along the slide like so. Good. Nope. That's rule 2, man. Get your finger off the trigger. Good, good. Nope. Are you right hand or left hand? Left hand? So, okay. So your fingers are going to go like that and that. Keep them off the trigger like so. Perfect. All right. Remember, so it's going to look like this. It's going to look like this. Finger is off the trigger here. We pick them up. Okay? We always pick them up. Keep them pointed down. Because we never pointed at anything we don't want to destroy. Now, the web of your thumb needs to get as high into this beaver tail as possible. So take the web of this, move it around like that, and get it nice and tight like up there. Nice and tight, nice and tight. We don't want any room. Whoop. Okay, good. Whoop. All right. No, you got to have a nice tighter grip. There you go. Because any room here, if you fire, when you get old enough, when you fire, that room, that is where your actual recoil is going to go. So we always want to be nice and tight up here. So for our weaker hand, for your weaker hand, you're going to take it and you're going to make it like you're shaking somebody's hand. Finger off the trigger. You're going to shoot me. Finger off the trigger. It's okay. We're good. That's okay. So our fingers are going to look like this. Perfect. So we're going to make it like we're shaking a hand. Put your hand out like you're shaking. And you're going to place your thumb. See where this part is right on the gun? Right before the slide right here. You're going to put your thumb right there. Right in front of this notch. And then you're going to put your back thumb on top, like so. If you want. Yes, perfect. Your right thumb is on top of your left thumb. Left thumb is here, right thumb is there. That's how it should look. Strong hand thumb, weak hand thumb underneath. Perfect. If you want, move that out a little bit. You don't mind if I move your hands? Perfect. And tight. Nice. Underneath. Forward. Nice. Tighter. Tighter. There. Good. Good. This is a Glock 17, so it's a typical full size. It would be a little different with that. All right. So when we present, we will be bringing the gun up to eye level. Okay. So just bring the. It's okay. We know they're not real, so bring them up to your eyes. A lot of people try to do this. You're making more work for yourself. Bring the gun up to eye level. Okay? Good, good, good. When we're standing, one thing, we can put the guns down, because we're going to talk about stance real quick. I got 30 of them, don't worry. If you can't find them, I got tons of them. You need to think right now, if you were to start running, what foot would you use? Right or left? Or even just start walking. Which one would you step first with? Yep, perfect. So while we're doing that is you're going to put that strong foot front, and then you're going to take your weaker foot and split the difference, kind of like a golf swing. Does that make sense? You're going to do an athletic type stance. And then we're going to bend our knees a little bit. And we're not going to have our back straight. What we're going to do is we're going to actually roll our shoulders forward, because that makes a straight line, and it allows you to absorb the recoil when you do that. We're not doing stand straight like this, because a nice strong wind will blow you over. If you have an athletic stance, you are able to move if the threat moves. Or you're able to actually absorb the recoil more when I turn you into a little bit of a spring with the arms out like that. Does that make sense? All right, so we pick our firearms up again, like that. Pick them up. See how many of you actually remembered. And then take thumbs up, and then this one underneath, like so. That's how we're doing it every time. Let me see. Do you mind if I move your hands around? Can I do that? So let's take this thumb right here and put it right here. Let's take our hands under there, thumb up here, and then this thumb on top. Nice. And then you can push that hand. Are you right-handed or left-handed? Okay, so this hand, take this hand off, put these all underneath, and then do what we did before, thumb up, thumb forward, underneath, like that. Gotcha? Gotcha. All right, all right. All right, all right, all right, all right. All right, is everybody in that stance? Let me see the stance. Spread the feet apart a little bit more. Bend the knees. Okay, knees bent, knees bent, knees bent. You're good, knees bent. Because as soon as you fire that shot, you are going to have recoil. Everybody look at me. We're going to use him as a human example. The recoil is going to shoot. And then he's going to spring back. Let me push you a little bit. No, just absorb. With it. Yeah, okay. He's going to shoot. He's going to take this gun and punch it back forward. That's what I mean when I turn you into a spring. A lot of people say stand 2 feet apart like this. You have no ability to absorb recoil. When you are like this, you are absorbing and pushing back out. And then the more you practice, you will actually just do that instinctively, because the problem is, you are actually fighting the gun. People don't realize that you are going to be fighting the recoil just as much as anything else when you're shooting it. So you want to push that back out when you shoot.
So as soon as you feel the recoil, try to go back to...
Great question. So you shoot, and this is all going to happen within a matter of seconds. You're going to shoot, you're going to instinctively rock back. That's why we want our knees bent like that, because we're going to absorb it. As soon as you realize you're in this position, push straight back out again. Because a lot of people will shoot like this, and they're like, I'm starting to get tired. And then their arms get lazy, and they start. That's because they're fighting it. They're trying to fight the recoil with everything. If you push back in, you're at least using your momentum to go back out. Okay?
Should you be tense when you
So as far as grip, you want to make sure it is a solid grip, but not squeezing so hard that you're going to make yourself exhausted. Yes, you want to have a good grip on it, but you're not squeezing.
and then should your arms be tense also?
Yes, when tense, that's why we roll the shoulders, because we're going to push them out, and they're going to be straight, and they're actually going to be locked in. Yep. Okay. All right. Questions?
Weight distribution, front weighted
Equal.
equal.
He asked about distribution as far as feet. Make sure that your weight is equally distributed. Don't try to go heavy on one or heavy on another, because that's going to lead to imbalance. And imbalance is our enemy. We want everything to be as perfectly balanced as possible, because that way when we recoil, we're using everything to push right back. Okay?
Are we starting with one eyeball? And which eyeball is that?
So, right hand, left hand. Right eye normally. So you could always do the test where you do this, where you put your hand up, and if you were to look at this pole, now close your left eye. Do you see one or two? Just your left eye, one or two?
I see that hole through it.
Okay, all right, do it again. Bring it back up. Now do your right eye. One or two? Do you see one pole or two?
I think I'm misunderstanding it.
So when you're holding it up,
Yeah?
you should see two hands. And when you close your eye, the pole is either going to be in your eye line or you're going to see your hand. So look at the pole, you should see two hands, right? When you have your both eyes open. Okay, you put it up, close your left eye. Do you see the pole or your hand?
Oh, I see it through my right eye.
Then your right eye dominant.
All right, cool.
So, and,
Do it when it gets smaller.
no,
And then if you do it, and look at me, and as I make it smaller, you're going to see one eye or the other. What eye do you see?
for new shooters, I don't mind one eyes. So I shoot.
Oh, that's dominant. So as I close it, it's going to go to my one eye or the other. So it closes, you get to the dominant eye.
Okay. Yeah.
So try it on her.
Well, she figured it out with that one. So, as far as the question of one eye or two, if you're a new shooter and you're comfortable with one eye, that's fine. As you become more comfortable, I shot with one eye for about 5-6 years, and eventually I learned to shoot with both. So it doesn't. I want you to be more focused on being able to shoot properly, and if that means one eye, that's fine. You know, so eventually people will say you have to shoot with two, but it is what it is on that. If, of course, now you're getting into the question of like red dots and lasers and all that stuff helps you out. So for now, to avoid all that, shoot with your dominant eye.
Just go to the range
And just-
New Hampshire and
And
try
just
everything out.
yeah, and when you're talking about like sighting up, just use your dominant eye to shoot. So that way you're not. I want you at least, because the fundamentals and everything and learning that is more important than trying to figure out shooting with one eye or two. Yeah. There you go. If that's what you got. All right. Okay. Any other questions when it comes to stance? So the most important thing that we're getting out of this is every time we pick up our firearm is that we are always keeping our finger on the slide. We're making sure the web of this hand right here is as up on the beaver tail as possible to avoid any kind of open area, any kind of space. We want to make sure this left hand here, when it is lined up on the sight, is nice and strong as well. Like that. Any other questions?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll be, yeah, absolutely.